And folks, hello. Here we are, another week, another crazy weekend. I mean, folks, you can't make this stuff up. You would think if I just went down the list and told you what the news stories were from the weekend, you would think that I was reciting a movie or maybe writing a movie. It's just kind of nuts. But welcome, folks. This is On Point with Victor. I am Victor Armendariz. Oh, there we are. Now I can hear myself. Bear with us, folks. You know this is live radio, so you never know what's going to happen. But I was just saying that we are coming off a crazy weekend. Lots of news stories. You can't make this stuff up. If I were to just run down the topic list of the news and the news of the day, you would think I was writing a movie. I mean, it's kind of insane, a lot of the things going on. But thanks so much for tuning in, folks. I am Victor Armendariz. This is On Point with Victor. You are tuned into America's Web Radio. Thanks again, and listen, you know the show. Learn it, say it, use it. Victor at americaswebradio.com. I love to hear from you, especially those of you who disagree. So the email to email the show is victor at americaswebradio.com. So, all right, folks, we're just going to jump into this. We've got so much to do and lots to try and get to today, so I'm just going to run right into it. But I'm going to take a second here and pass this off real quick for an important message from David, the station owner.
Okay. Victor, thanks for letting me steal a few minutes. One, I know you have a very good conservative audience listening, and we're looking for conservative hosts. So and particularly, we would like a couple of women to host a show that are conservatives and would like to express their opinion. So if
because we at America's Radio are equal opportunity
absolutely
seekers,
and we've tried Fox, and I just can't afford them. But beyond that, if you are interested and would like to express your opinion and conservative, we'd love to talk to you. Just email your resume to GM at America's Web Radio. With that being said, I'm going to get into another issue. As many of you know, we do a show called SAFE, which is it's an elderly abuse show every Monday at 10 o'clock. And the reason we do it is because the world is just full of scams. And I got a phone call today, as a matter of fact. And one thing I've learned is if I don't know the number, I don't answer the call. Let them leave a message. So I let them leave a message. I got their telephone number, and this was a scam that if they've called me twice, and if I don't return the call, which they want you to return the call so they'll have your telephone number, and that you're a legitimate, that it's a robo-scam, and that you're a legitimate telephone number so they can call you again. This one was that we've tried calling you twice, and you must answer, you must respond quickly, or you may be in front of a grand jury, and this number you'll talk to a federal agent, yada da 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 da. Well, let me tell you what I did with it. I took the message, I'm downloading the message, and it's going straight to the FBI with their telephone number. And I do anticipate getting some results out of it, because we're putting our federal agent, Joe Gavalis, that does the show. He was a former federal agent, and he knows the buttons to push and the bells to ring. So that's exactly what we're going to do with it. And I'm promising you, and I'll swear to you in front of Victor, and he can hold me to my word, we are going after every scammer there is, any way, shape, form, or fashion that we can get them, via their telephone numbers or anything else. And I'll even give them my home address, and they can come looking for me, because I'll shoot them in the on my driveway, I hate these scammers.
Yeah.
And these guys, they laugh because it's their business, and they make a ton of money at it.
And they prey on
and they prey on the elderly. And this phone call that I got, had I not, when I knew it wasn't a number that I'd never even heard of, area code 410. Mm-hmm. Do you know where it is?
I am not familiar with that one, and I'm familiar with a lot of area codes.
Yeah, well, 410 I'd never heard of.
I'd have to look that one up.
Or anything else. But so I didn't answer it. I wasn't about to answer it. And as I listened to the lady say, well, this is the second time we've tried to contact you, and you're going to be forced to go before a grand jury and testify. You know, what the hell, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving the scammers warning. And folks, I need your help too. If you get a call like this, or your parents do, or any elderly person, or anybody gets a call, and you all need help and you want help, one, don't ever answer the call. Don't call them back. Just pass the number on to us. And we've had one person, we're pretty sure, has made it in behind bars now. And I hope to I'd love to lock up thousands that are into this. So please help us. If you get a scam call, let us know. We will either take care of it, or we'll tell you who to go to take care of it. And I'd like to put all these bastards out of business.
I amen to that. And folks, again, if you're experiencing this, or your parents are, or your grandparents, if you can collect a little information, send it to us at gm@americaswebradio.com. We really will help you fight the fight. And just remind your elderly family members not to ever send money to anyone they don't know, or that's not standing in front of them, because
it's so ridiculous, Victor, that, well, send us an I-2 card, or you don't have to send it to us. All you have to do is give us a number on the back.
Yeah.
I can't see the IRS collecting like that, or a federal judge.
Never. Yeah, no.
I mean, this is just, it's crazy and absurd, but some people don't know that.
But a lot of people don't know that, and that's why there's these scammers are out there. So yeah, we will go after them, and like I said just a minute ago, if you're out there in this audience and you need some help, or you've had this experience and you've got some information, send it to us, and we will fight the good fight. One great thing about having an airwave like this, and being able to sit here and talk to you guys, and this is, we're national. America's Web Radio is national, not just my show, but every show.
Excuse me again, but we're actually very international, and we found out this past weekend we have the #1 classic car show in England.
No
they
kidding.
Love us over there. They listen, all of their club members listen to Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber. They're the two hosts that do our classic car show every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock London time, so it's not early for them in the morning. And they listen, and I knew we had a good audience, but I didn't realize that Mike Thies was one. He does business in the classic car industry in England. And he's the one that found out and called Steve Ronaldo and said, hey, you're a star in London.
Well, look at there, folks. So we're not just national, we're international. And I can believe that, because, in England, I think they crave the V8. They crave that American freedom, and V8, when you're over in England, folks, if you ever get a chance and you can go visit Europe, and you can go to England, there are some cool car nutheads, gearheads, I should say. Trust me, I call myself a nuthead. With just some of the stuff that I tinker with, but there are gearheads in England, and it's pretty neat to see, and they love talking about American muscle, and that's what it's referred to, American muscle, and so if you walk around, you can walk around with pride, because it's pretty neat, because most of the times in Europe, when you're walking around, you're going to see these little cars that are about the size of your shoe. But I digress. But we'll move on. But that's just what the reach we have here at America's Web Radio, folks. So thanks to all of you who are listening, whether you're over the pond or you're here somewhere in these wonderful United States, and you're tuned in. Thanks so much for listening. So, okay, we're going to get, before I get down.
One other thing.
All right, one more thing.
One more thing. Please pass it on to your friends. We know that we're doing quite well with the car show, with Victor's show, and a number of others, but there's still people that have never heard of America's Web Radio. And we got a deal the other day that, noticed that people were listening and how much they appreciated the different shows that we have. So please, don't take it for granted that your best friend knows about America's Web Radio. Tell them about it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, folks. And you can do me and all the other hosts here a big favor by spreading the word. Not just On Point with Victor, but America's Web Radio, because we we have some great shows here, and you can also always push the YouTube page and forward that. In fact, let's try something here. Let's do a drive today. Let's see how many of you listeners out there will take a second today, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, or however you want to do it, and just send out a note saying, hey, check out the YouTube page, America's Web Radio, and maybe send out a note to your friends and say, hey, just check this out. Check out America's Web Radio, our YouTube page and our Facebook page, and let's see how many people we can get to go like that in the next 24 hours. That would be a little fun to see.
Brittany, I'm having some car work done, and I was checking with her yesterday and told her what I did. And she said, oh, well, I'm a conservative. I'll put it on my... And she did. She subscribed on the spot to YouTube. And on the spot, she put our app on her telephone. So...
excellent.
I mean, just...
Oh, and that's another good point. You can download the app from the App Store, America's Web Radio, and then you can just open the app and listen to my wonderful voice or any of the other wonderful hosts at any time. Because you can listen to us live, folks, or you can listen to replays, because we will have the shows, they will be replayed, and you can go to americaswebradio.com and download the podcast and re-listen, or just listen to, whenever you want. I know I have listeners out there that go, I can't believe Victor just said that, and they'll go back and they'll get the podcast and listen to it again just to make sure. But lots of ways to listen, folks. So thanks again, and please do spread the word. Let's see in the next 24 to 48 hours how many people we can get to go to the YouTube page, America's Web Radio, and like it and subscribe to it, and how many people will like the America's Web Radio page on Facebook. And while you're there, you can even find me, Victor Armendariz. You can find me on Facebook, and you can like me too, and I'll like you back, even if you're a liberal. I do have some liberal friends on my Facebook, folks, so why don't you join them? All right, so before I get into the topic rundown, the area code 410 happens to be Baltimore, Maryland. So of all places, since Baltimore was in the news, and I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit today. But let's get to the topic rundown, because there's so much to get to today. And I'm also, when we get close to the bottom of the hour, actually a little before the bottom of the hour, I'm going to bring in my Newt Gingrich. He's going to call in, and we're going to talk about a few things. So folks, we're right up against the first break, so you hang on tight. We're going to take a quick break, and when I get back, we're going to get into the topic rundown, starting with the Clintons, because they have struck again. We'll be right back.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696.
Larry there?
Down here. And speak to a representative.
Awesome.
of the Atlanta Healing
Stand by,
Center.
Larry, and I'll bring you in as I do some of my monologue.
Can you hear me okay? I got you on my speaker at home.
I can hear you. I can hear you, but it'll be better if you don't use the speaker. It'll sound a lot better if you hold the handset.
All right, I'm speakers off.
Is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Okay, fading music.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This is On Point with Victor. I am Victor Armendariz. Okay, we're going to get right back into this topic rundown. I gotta touch on a few things. There's so much to talk about, and then I'm going to have a real treat because we've got Larry Galls calling in, and he's going to join us, and we're going to examine a few things that are going on in the news. This news cycle that I call a Hollywood movie, because you just can't make this stuff up. But one thing I want to touch on real quick, folks, that I'm sure all of you have heard that Jeffrey Epstein has assumed room temperature. And apparently this man was able to commit suicide. Now, if you're not familiar with Jeffrey Epstein, I'm not going to take a whole lot of time to get into what he is and what he's done and who he is and all that. You can look him up. But look up and what he was. But Jeffrey Epstein, to sum it up, was a pretty crappy, low kind of a guy. I mean, this guy, he was a pedophile. He was a known pedophile. Hollywood knew it. The left knew it, the media knew it, and the political establishment knew it. But this man was allowed to do a lot of bad things, and one of the biggest things he's known for is having a private island, and he had a private jet, and he would fly politicians and Hollywoodians into this island. And this island was known for having lots of girls, including underage girls. And people could go to this island, have different, let's just say, engage in different activities, some of these with women who were underage, and let's just face it, girls. And again, folks, this was known, and you do not have to take this from me. Look it up yourself. There's plenty of news articles out there. My goodness, Jeffrey Epstein was even brought on charges before, but released. And look, I just can't say it enough. Look it up for yourself, because what this guy was getting away with was ridiculous. And the fact that politicians knew what was going on, the media knew what was going on, Hollywood knew what was going on, and nothing was done. I mean, it's a shame. Lots of people were hurt by this guy. And now, when he was finally arrested and put in jail, he has been under suicide watch. Now, folks, he wasn't just under suicide watch because he was going to commit suicide. I don't think that danger was really there. This man was talking to his lawyers every day. He was spending time with his lawyers every day. His lawyers just put out a notice a week or two before his death, and I'm using quotes, air quotes, before his air quote suicide. His lawyers were putting out saying he's adjusting well. Epstein is adjusting well to his cell. He's adjusting well to the prison life. He's adjusting. You don't say things like that if you're planning suicide, unless you're in on it, maybe. But then you've got to look at the cell. If you look at this type of prison that he was in, first of all, there's nothing freely hanging from the ceiling to tie your rope. There's not going to be benches in there or anything for him to stand on. There's not going to be anything in that cell that he can tie around his neck. And if some of you are out there screaming, he had sheets, he had bed sheets, folks, look up the type of bed sheets in that type of prison. They're very, very thin and very flimsy, and I don't think, now I don't know this for sure, but logically, based on the type of sheets that are in there, they probably wouldn't hold his body weight. And then, even if they could, here's a man who's kind of elderly and maybe on the feeble side. How's he going to get his weight up there? How's he going to do that? It wasn't done alone. Let's just say, if there was a recording, we would probably hear something like, hey, Jeffrey, this is going to hurt just for a second, and it'll be over soon. That's probably what happened, folks, because to believe that he didn't have help, and I am not going to sit here and throw out conspiracy theories or anything like that. But I am going to point out a logical analysis of circumstantial evidence. And whenever there's enough circumstantial evidence out there, you kind of need to go that way and see what's there. There needs to be an investigation. And in fact, Attorney General Barr was so upset with what happened because apparently this guy was under 24-hour surveillance, a suicide watch. And somehow the officers that were supposed to be watching were told to, whether it was told to stand down or they were told to leave, they were told to, they didn't have to be there. There was a gap, and suddenly he's dead. So that alone is circumstantial. The other things I told you about the jail cell and the sheets and things, that's circumstantial. This is circumstantial evidence that warrants an investigation, and luckily Barr immediately put the FBI on the case, and they are investigating. Now, unfortunately, when things like this happen, an investigation, and I'm using air quotes again, starts, that's usually where the story is going to die. I hope that's not the case this time. I hope Attorney General Barr really gets to the bottom of this because, folks, I joke about this because I say the Clintons have struck again, because you've got a media right now who's trying to place this at the feet of Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr. It's laughable to hear the media try and blame and put this on Barr and Trump as if they did something to cause the death of Epstein. Folks, you look at the history of Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr, and there is not a history of their circle of trust, people dying that have been in this circle and have left the circle. That's just not there. But if you go and you look at the Clintons and you just go do a little bit of digging yourself and a little bit of story, and again, I'm not saying the Clintons had anything to do with this, but what I am saying is if you look up, you will find more than 2, 3, 4, 5 stories of people who were within the Clinton circle who are now 6 feet in the wrong direction. Again, I am not saying what happened. I'm saying there's enough circumstantial evidence. And when I hear the media try and lay this at the feet of Donald Trump as if he's had a history of people dying around him, or as if Barr's had it, then I cannot sit here and not point out that the group of people who have had people dying around them would be the Clintons. And so I am just saying this has got to be an investigation that's got to happen. We need to find out how Epstein died. We need an autopsy. We need video, because there was not video, how amazingly, no video in the jail cell, but there was video on the outside of the jail cell. They can and will and do know who entered that jail cell and who exited the jail cell. This is information that we need to demand that it gets released. We need to demand that to learn about this. So we need to allow this investigation to happen, but we as citizens need not stand by and let this investigation die. We're going to have to demand answers. And hey, look, folks, maybe he did die a normal way. Pedophiles do seem to die, and air quotes, commit suicide in prison. It does happen. The other inmates, as murderous as they can be, do seem to have a problem with other inmates who were pedophiles or known pedophiles. So, David, I think you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. We've all watched enough television, excuse me, and we've watched enough other things that, you put a guy in jail that's potential suicidal or, well, basically suicidal, and one of the first things you do is you take his belt away, you take this away, you take anything that, you take his...
anything that he could use.
Yeah, anything that he can use. You take away his dental floss because he can save up enough to climb down the side of the jail. But anyway.
Yeah, and you don't give him utensils.
You don't give him utensils, that's true. And you don't leave his bed with sheets on it.
Right.
What's the first thing you can do with a sheet? Turn it into a rope.
You try to turn it into a rope, which is why I mentioned before, and in a lot of those prisons, they use sheets that can't support weight or a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So there are questions that need to be asked. There's no doubt. So
no doubt.
So I'm going to deviate from my list here, and I'm going to bring in Larry. Are you on the phones?
Yeah, I'm here, Victor. Go ahead.
Excellent. So, folks, this is Larry Goss calling in, and he is my Newt Gingrich. I like to call him Newt Gingrich. He's a killer consultant in political analysis, and I say consultant because one day Larry's going to start a company, and or maybe I'll help him, and it's going to be called Underdog Political Consultants. But Larry, just real quick, just give me a quick take from your point of view on the Epstein story.
I was surprised it took so long. And I just thought that he's got too much information, and that they were going to have to silence him as far as the people in the establishment that was doing some bad things. And so I think right now the look should also be for the girl that was always soliciting the girls for him, because an old man goes up to a 14-year-old girl, he's going to raise flags, he's going to draw attention. He had an assistant girl that would go and talk to these girls and bring them in. She's got all the information as far as who was doing what, where, and everything else. So they need to locate where she's at, because someone's going to find her, and she's going to be the next Jimmy Hoffa if they don't get a hold of her.
That's a good point. I mean, it's a great point, and I don't really hear anyone in the mainstream media that are even mentioning this assistant, because you're absolutely right, and I cannot remember her name.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me or anything else, but I can try and look at it during break.
But he did have her, and she was used to recruit.
She was a recruiter, and she was a girlfriend, and she was, she's the one. So it didn't draw attention to bring the girls in, because she's the one doing that.
Right.
But she was with him all the time. And there's photos of her at all the parties with Epstein and socializing with everybody. So she knew. She was the one, it's kind of like the mama-san, you would say, in the Philippines, who would run the house or whatever. She was the one in charge, coordinating everything and keeping it. So she knows everybody's name, and so they know where she's at.
Every big bar or house, so to speak, House of Women, has a house mom. And don't ask me how I know that. Larry told me. But that's one thing that you learn a lot. You learn in the military, and that's one thing you will see in movies that's actually correct. But if you just do a little reading on Bordeaux and places like that,
watch that documentary on the guy from the Bunny Ranch in Vegas. They have the one lady who's the house mom.
The house mom.
And she's the one that controls all the rooms, controls the money, makes sure the taxes are done. And all the girls go to her.
Right.
And everything else. So there's someone running. And so that one girl was the one who also was a recruiter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she has all the names, and I just think that she's going to be disappeared.
Well, that's another good point. And to think that, the other thing that, we'll make this quick and move on, but the other thing that people need to understand about Epstein is you can research Epstein, and no one can really show you how he made his money. This guy was worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you can't find transactions where he was, it says he's a stock trader, or he was a stock trader, but you can't find any substantial tradings that he did and where the money was coming from. So I surmise that he was being paid by some high-powered people, because I think he was engaging in blackmail. I think that was his business. And
I thought maybe it was more like a CIA or some, another, top-level spook type program, because bad people who do bad things hang around with other people who do bad things. And this gets an end that you can do recordings, you can get information as people talk casually, and you've got photos and you got stuff that you can go turn people. And so this was allowed to happen. Because this fish is getting all these big fish, and that's what you need to do. So you just turn the other cheek while this is going on, because the bigger problem is this thing over here. We need the information on them. And so we're going to let this go on, the Epstein stuff go on, because he's getting us information that we can turn and use to get better things.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a good hypothesis, Larry. And I think it might be a combination. I do believe that. When we've got Hollywood elite and political elite, and let's face it, folks, the Democrat elite. There are some people that they were probably paying Epstein a lot, including Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is on record 26 times visiting that island by way of Epstein's jet. So just imagine what's going on in that jet from here to there, and then what's going on in that island. So just look, folks, these are questions that need to be asked. We need to stop letting things like this happen and just sitting around going, well, we don't want to be called conspiracy kooks, or we don't have to media make fun of us. It's about time that we stand up and tell the media a thing or two, or tell them where they can go, because we've got to stop being afraid of being made fun of by the media. We've got to stop being afraid of being called a racist, which is another topic Larry I want to get to in a minute. But Lee, real quick, the next on the topic right here I wanted to mention was what's going on in China right now. There's a little uprising going on in Hong Kong, and folks, we're going to go to a break here, but Larry, ponder that. Folks out there, just ponder this. There's an uprising going on in Hong Kong, and I want you to tell me what flag they're around. We will be right back.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the americasbroadcastnetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to America's Web Radio. This is On Point with Victor. We are discussing a few items here, but when I left you at the bottom of this break, I was telling you about what's going on in Hong Kong. There's kind of an uprising going on because the mainland China, the communist China, are trying to crack down on Hong Kong. And there's some riots going on. Well, I shouldn't say riots. There's just some protests going on. And the people in Hong Kong are waving around a flag. Larry, do you want to take a guess of which flag they're waving?
Oh, it's the American flag.
Absolutely.
And don't you wish how much you want to bet they wish they had the Second Amendment there?
Oh, without a doubt. And that's a great point, Larry, because they don't have the Second Amendment there. These people are standing up, and now when I left the news this morning, the riot police were starting to move in on these protesters. And to sum it up real quick for you, ladies and gentlemen, basically, hardline China is trying to move in on Hong Kong and take away some of their freedoms. That's bottom line, no sugarcoating. That's the goal. There's a lot of freedom going on in Hong Kong, and you can just look at the difference of mainland China versus Hong Kong. And they are trying to put in some influence, which is going to lead to less freedoms. And the people of Hong Kong know this. And what flag do they choose? The United States. I venture to tell you, there's no one in Hong Kong kneeling at the site of the United States flag. They're holding it as proud as an American should hold it. And that gives me pride, Larry. It gives me pride to know that still, where there's oppression in this world, the people will turn to the flag of the United States of America, and it just makes my chest swell. What do you think?
Exactly. I mean, this whole thing started back when China had passed. That was in February. They were passing some ordinance that the Chinese government could extradite people with suspicions, or whatever, which goes to your red flag laws. All of a sudden, they have a suspicion, and boom, they're going to extradite. We're here, the red flag law. They have a suspicion of you, and they're going to take away your rights, your guns.
Yep.
So here's this protest. Every one of those protesters, I mean, they're standing strong, and they're at risk of life real easy because none of them have guns. You know that if they had guns, it'd be a completely different battle going with the Chinese government.
Huge different battle going on. The Chinese government would be trying to play ball. And Larry, those are some great points. As usual, and this is why I call you my Newt Gingrich, because I was going to get to the red flag laws. You are 100% correct, Larry, in that. And this is what drives me crazy. In fact, one of the topics today that I was going to get to, or am going to get to, is the air quotes, just do something establishment. Because right now you've got a Congress with it's the leftist socialist Democrats with the aid of the establishment Republicans are in the do something mode. And what I mean by that, and I'm using quotes, do something mode, is that Congress right now is sitting around going, we got to do something about the shootings. Not let's sit down and actually have a discussion on what we can do to actually help people and actually really stop these evil people from doing this, or how can we get involved in mental health and catch these people before they do these acts of violence. No, we're not talking about that. We're in a just do something mode, which is going to lead to taking away rights. It's going to be taking away and infringing on God-given rights that the American citizen has. And Larry, you are so right to point out that what China is trying to do to Hong Kong is the equivalent of what the Congress is trying to do with red flag laws.
Right. There's no proof, and I mean the people who use no proof type laws like a red flag are like China, Cuba, Russia.
Yes.
And and that's
Absolutely.
not what we want here.
Because Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but with red flag laws, there's due process is thrown right out the window.
Correct. You can have the police that can make a statement, or people can make an anonymous call, and there's no punishment for the person who made the false report.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no double proof. We just need to not do a red flag. We already have laws in place that you look at the Parkland shooting, and if the police would have followed the procedures that were in place, or the school and the county or anything else, then you wouldn't have had this issue. So these red flags wouldn't have changed what happened.
Well, that's another.
They didn't follow the procedures anyway, so It's not different.
Well, that's another good point, Larry. There's all kinds of laws on the books right now that if we would just enforce and just follow protocol,
a lot of be alive. Follow protocol.
Yeah, right. Right. I mean, it's true. It's a good point. But look what the government tries to do. Inherently.
Here's a couple things I wanted to go real quick on it. If you look at since 1993, school violence is down by 33%. Mm-hmm. Gun homicides are down by 49%. Gun crime is down by 79%, and yet we still want to take away more guns. And this is since 1993 till now. That's what the statistics are showing.
Larry,
I did some more research. You got 10 people on average die a day in pools. 75% are more children.
You've got 50
you got
plus.
Opioid deaths in 2016 alone was 42,000. Homicides in 2016 was 19,000. But opioid deaths was 42,000.
Absolutely.
Kids are safer today than they were in 1990.
In 1990.
We're 4 times safer.
Wow.
And then the last thing is with immigration. I was going to go to that. MS-13 kills more people than mass shooters do, and every one of their guns are illegal.
Everyone, including themselves. I mean, most of the MS-13 gang members are illegal themselves. Larry, you bring me to the next topic on the topic rundown. No, you are doing great. It's as if you have my show notes.
All right.
You know what they say, Larry. Great minds, we think alike. So, Larry, you bring me to another point where, and here's a question I'll pose, and then I'm going to give the answers. Number one, and this is the latest FBI murder statistics. So, Larry, you hit this nail right on the head. So, folks, listen and ponder this. The latest FBI murder statistics. Number one, how many times were rifles used to murder people in all of 2017? 403. 403. And a very, very small percentage of those 403 incidents with rifles could be considered an assault rifle because they weren't that type of rifle that has been deemed assault rifle. So that was a small percentage. Now, Larry, get a load of this, and ladies and gentlemen, just listen to this. How many knives or cutting instruments were used to murder someone that same year? 1,591. So you've got 403 murders committed by some type of rifle versus 1,591 in that same 12-month period, 1,591 deaths by a knife or some type of cutting instrument. So, Larry, I ask the logical, on-point, common-sense question, where's the call to ban knives?
Or even just hammers are used more than guns.
You know what? There you go again, Larry. So number 3.
Oh, okay.
How many blunt objects, and that's clubs, that's hammers, were used? The answer, that same year, 12-month period, 467. So you are more likely to die at the hands of a murderer using a hammer, a club, a bat, or a knife, or some other cutting instrument than you are from a rifle. But yet, Larry, what are they going after?
Well, there's a gentleman by the name of Mark Robinson, and he gave a speech in April of 2018 to the Greensboro City Council. And I can play it, but I mean, everyone should go listen to him because he talks about how why are you taking away my rights? Mm-hmm. What about the people who are causing this? That's what you need to be going at, but you want to come after my rights. And it's about a 4-minute speech that he gives to him. He's very passionate, and it's really, really good. And so I recommend everybody just look at the Mark Robinson City Council and listen to it's a 5-minute video or whatever, and it's just him talking about protecting his rights, and it's just really good.
And they could probably find that on YouTube, right?
Absolutely. I've got it keyed up, but I didn't want to take the show on. I was just listening.
Well, no, that's okay. Well, but yeah, we'll get everybody to go listen to that. I actually am familiar with that, Larry, and you're absolutely right. It's a great emotional speech that he gave, and that's the point, isn't it, Larry? That when you have a socialist-leaning government like we have right now, every time there's a crisis or something, they don't move to protect the people. They move to take away the rights of the individual. And that's a problem, Larry. That is a problem where we need to start standing up.
Well, look at who has the toughest gun rights anywhere is Chicago, and they have the most homicides.
Yes.
So it's like your laws that you're trying to propose aren't working.
Right. I mean, and again, it's the... This is one of those points where we, as whether you're a conservative or you're a libertarian or you're an independent or a constitutionalist or whatever you call yourselves, and by gosh, even if you're an old school Democrat, you should be standing up right now fighting for the Constitution. We should stand up and stop being afraid of the word racist. The word racist has been completely bastardized and doesn't even have a meaning anymore. I mean, Larry, have we not reached a point to where today's left, today's Democrats, and along with the help of the lamestream media, if you so much as disagree with part of their agenda, you're a racist?
Yeah, I make people explain how on that because I try and stick just to the facts that are on point, but they want to shut down the argument. Mm-hmm. And I think whenever someone points out, you just need to take it back and say you need to apologize and let's stick to the facts of what we're talking about.
Well, you know, Larry, I have a little saying that I like to say that whenever I'm in a debate with a Democrat or liberal or a socialist, as soon as they call me a racist, I know I've won the debate.
That's true.
And that's what it's gotten to, Larry. And folks, just start paying attention around you. Now they're calling black people and Hispanics and Asian. We're all racist if we disagree.
You have to fight back because I remember when I did, because I don't do social media anymore or anything else, but back in when we ran together, mm-hmm. I forget someone called, man, we were talking about gun control or some rules, and I was having a conversation on this person's page, and she said, the person whose page it was said, you guys don't need to listen to him, he's just a racist, whatever. And I immediately was up and I just fired back. You owe me to, I've stuck to facts, and I just list everything, and you go back to your page, you look back on all this stuff I've already said, and it's always been fact-driven. I give you websites, I give you my resource, mm-hmm. and for you to call that as out of line, and you owe me an apology. And I insisted on it, and the person did come back, because they weren't expecting someone to fire back so hard.
Well,
So you've got to fire everybody. If you get called, you've got to fire back and don't let people get away with it.
That is great advice, Larry. So on that note, hang on right there. We're going to go to our next break, folks. You're listening to On Point with Victor. This is America's Web Radio. We'll be right back. There's nothing going on. or I don't hear anything.
Satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
This is Ron Camacho, host of the Business Hour, on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. Join me as I talk with passionate professionals on a program that profiles the best businesses, business professionals, business practices, and fascinating individuals to get an insider view of how America works. 10 to 11 a.m. on America's Web Radio.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we had caller Larry. Are you still there?
Yeah, I've got 2 more minutes, Brian.
Yeah, I know you've got to run pretty quick here, Larry. But just before you head out, anything else you wanted to touch on? I know we had a bunch of things we wanted to talk about. In fact, Larry, I wanted to maybe you can touch on this real quick, Larry. I think what's going on in Baltimore and in all the inner cities, which are run by Democrats and have been run by Democrats for 40 plus years, I think Trump has an awesome opportunity. What do you think?
Well, I think so. And one thing people get back to self-reliance, where you look at conservatives. You had over this weekend or 2 weekends ago volunteers who were Trump supporters. There's like 28 of them, I think it was under 30, went to clean up an area of Baltimore. And they had 3 dumpsters be delivered, and they picked up over 12,000 pounds worth of trash between the 28 people, under 30 people in that day or that weekend. None of the residents helped. And I kind of go back to that movie with Clint Eastwood on Gran Torino, when he's looking at, he's keeping his house, and everybody's coming in, and you have from all the different parts of the world coming in and living, and they depend on government to take care of things. They weren't taking pride in their own place because it was new to them. They didn't have places this nice, and they weren't taking care of it. And he's keeping his place up, and then he had the one kid go and start fixing, and then people started taking care of their place now because they have to do it themselves. And I think you had the problem with Baltimore's. When that cleanup happened, nobody helped these volunteers that were residents there. It was just the volunteers doing it who don't live there. They're trying to help you out, and they're not. And the people who are living in it aren't having any self-respect or taking the self-reliance to take care of their area as well. They're saying it's the government needs to do this. The government needs that. Take some initiative and also keep it up yourself.
Well, that's a great point, Larry, and that's boy. That's
so that hits home with the movie, the Gran Torino, and
yeah.
List. Here we're going to clean it up, and then all the houses that street was looking good.
Yep, and that's a great example. I love that movie, but I love Clint Eastwood. But it's true, Larry, and that gets down to whether it's in the home or problems with education. But when you have a class that has become completely dependent on the government. And make no mistake, the Democrat-run inner cities have put out policies to create dependency and keep you in that dependent role. Because if there is no dependent role, there are no Democrat votes. I mean, let's just face it, folks. Self-reliant people don't usually vote for Democrats unless you're an elitist and you're just afraid of the government. But we've got this problem in the inner cities where there's no pride being taken in the neighborhood because they're told, well, the government's going to fix that.
They're not taking ownership.
They're not taking ownership. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and you see that with regular workers. They'll say, hey, I've got to go pick up my daughter. Thanks for letting me call in. It's a wonderful show.
Hey, you bet, Larry. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye.
So, folks, I mean, it's just there's so many things that we can look at that go to this whole problem that I speak about frequently of dependence and creating dependence. If you just look throughout history, look wherever socialism is being tried or socialism is being done, it never works. But to do it, you've got to oppress people. The very people that socialism says it's helping, the very people that socialism will sugarcoat their words so that the people think that they're going to be helped, are the people who get help the least. The only people who are wealthy under socialism are the elitist, the elite political crowd, the elite Hollywood or elite corporate crowd. Whoever plays ball with the socialist elite, they're going to be in that elitist circle. But you, the people, will always be looked at as the peasant. And I'm not making this stuff up. You can look it up in history. We're not taught history anymore. I just beg of you to just do some research, and for all intents and purposes, use DuckDuckGo sometimes to do some research, because Google, you really have to dig with Google. Google will bury historical stories. They will bury, or they will always put the left-leaning story up first. They're always going to put the left-leaning revisionist history first. And if you don't believe me, just do an experiment. Go to Google and research. Think of some historical thing. Look up Jeffrey Epstein, maybe. But look up something in history. Look, I'll tell you what. Maybe Google who was the only president, or what was the only time in the United States history where people were rounded up on the basis of their race. Look that up and see what Google pops up and see what DuckDuckGo pops up, because folks, we do have a time in our not so long ago past where in this country people were rounded up on the basis of race. And I'm going to tell you who did it. It was the progressive hero president Franklin D. Roosevelt. That's the only time in history that we, or a president or an administration in this country, the United States, rounded up people on the basis of their race and put them in a camp. That happened, folks, and that happened by a progressive Democrat president by the name of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Look it up if you don't believe me, because it's all there in history. This was back after Pearl Harbor was hit. He rounded up and basically stomped on the rights of the constitutional rights of Japanese citizens. Look it up, folks. Not making it up. We don't make up stuff here at On Point with Victor. And if I do make something up, I'll tell you that I'm making it up. but no, that's I'm dead serious. Look it up. So, just as we start to reach the end of the show here, gosh, we had so much to get into. Let me touch on something else. So another big item over the weekend, there was an election in Guatemala. Now listen, folks, I mean, lean into your radios here, lean into your cell phones, squeeze those AirPods on a little tighter. There was an election in Guatemala. And guess what group of people are upset about the deal that Trump made with the leaders of Guatemala and the leaders of Mexico? Guess who's upset over the weekend and showed it through their voting? The people of Guatemala. They're upset with the deal that Trump made with the Guatemalan leaders and with the Mexican leaders. Now you're asking me, what was that deal? Well, this was the deal that Trump made, requiring that the people, or let's face it, the illegal immigrants, the illegal migrants who are moving around from Honduras and El Salvador, he made a deal where now Guatemala has to accept and allow more of these migrants to seek asylum in Guatemala. So they have to seek it there before they make it to Mexico and try and seek it there, which means they're going to come here and seek it here. So Guatemala, the leaders of Guatemala made the deal with President Trump that will allow people from El Salvador and Honduras to seek asylum in Guatemala first. Well, this is not sitting well with the people of Guatemala. So I ask you to pay attention to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, all the news outlets, especially the lamestream media. And I'm still waiting for them to call the people of Guatemala racist, because I haven't heard it yet. Because if you stand in this country and we say, hey, we've got to do something about the illegal migrant problem, you're immediately called a racist. I will be called a racist. I've been called a racist, and I'm freaking Mexican descent. I had a listener that just sent a message here that was born in Mexico. He was called a racist on more than one occasion, and then he happily and with a smile on his face, I'm sure he does what I do. Well, in his case, he puts a smile on his face and goes, let me tell you where I was born. And then they back off the racism thing. But now, folks, the way things are going, the way they're throwing around the racist word, it just doesn't matter. You're just a racist. If you're a black conservative, you're a racist. If you're Hispanic conservative, you're a racist. If you're a black person who just absolutely supports individual rights, you're a racist. If you're Hispanic and you support individual rights, you're a racist. I mean, this is ridiculous, folks. Absolutely ridiculous. But I point this out, what happened in Guatemala, because the people of Guatemala don't want a flood of illegals either. And I haven't seen anywhere in the media yet where they've called the people of Guatemala racist. But if there is a Guatemalan American citizen here standing with me today going, you know, I'm a citizen now of the United States and I believe in a strong border, well, by golly, that Guatemalan would be called a racist. I guarantee it. So, because we're seeing it happen every day. And It just really, really irritates me, but I had to point that out because it's just kind of funny when people of Guatemala are standing up going, hey, wait a minute. We don't want all these illegals from Honduras coming here. We don't want all the illegals from Honduras and El Salvador coming here. They don't want to be flooded, people, ladies and gentlemen, because they have a culture that they're trying to keep. Mexico has a culture they want to keep, and by golly, the United States has a culture. But we in the United States are a culture of acceptance. We do accept immigrants happily, and we'll accept them as long as they want to assimilate. So I'm going to have to leave it there, folks, but boy, there's so much more we could get into. So you're going to have to tune in next week. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. It's been great, and we'll be back next week. You've been listening to On Point with Victor, America's Web Radio.